right, ladies and gentlemen, what's up? What's up? Welcome back to Live from the Living Room. I am live from my dining room. Just kidding. You know, I'm not in my dining room. We've been doing this for 2 weeks now. You guys know what's going on. I'm getting a little weird. I don't know about you guys. I recorded an ASMR video this morning. Not sure what's going on anymore, but I feel like when you're sitting in front of a desk with 4 microphones on it, you should probably record some weird stuff. So, got that holding down, no problem. I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate all the business and support. Quick reminder, we are still producing podcasts. Me and my engineer, Matt, have set up studios in our respective homes, and we can do remote podcasting. We will run your session, record all the audio on separate channels. When it's over, we will take that back and mix and master your audio so it can sound the best it possibly can. We will clean up the video, put your branding on it, intros, graphics, all that stuff, and send it back to you in 48 hours, complete with social share videos if you would like those too. If you have some interest in that, please let me know. We've dropped our rates. We're looking for business, trying to keep these DC residents and my staff members employed, so every bit of business counts. So thank you for tuning in and checking us out. I appreciate it. I will include a link to that remote session in the description once the broadcast is over. But enough about all that. I'm excited today to bring in two of my friends who happen to also know each other, so this should be a fun conversation. So I will not waste any more time. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Miss Trish so she can introduce herself. How you doing, Trish?
Hey, how's it going?
Excellent.
Yeah, it's the new reality, right? The realities of the new reality. You know,
That's right.
Look good from here to here. Down there, you don't want to know anything about it. You know.
Yeah. It's like the mullet of formal wear. You know what I mean? Like I'm all business on the top, but it's definitely party on the bottom. You guys don't even want to know what the other half of this outfit looks like.
It's the don't ask, don't tell of video blogs.
It's the new definition of semi-formal.
Right.
You know, it's halfway there. So, how are you doing today, Miss Trish? What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. So a quick intro for everybody. My name is Trish Simitakos. I own Trish Star Events, which is an event planning company based in DC. I've had a lot of conversations in the last couple of weeks with people in my industry, which I'm very intimately connected with locally. And I'm hearing, just businesses closing and people, across the spectrum, everything from I'm closing and this is the end of the world and this is it, like a time to abandon this industry and look at something different, to I'm super busy and I'm doing great and it's just time to take a breather and refocus and reorganize. So I'm more on that side of the spectrum where I'm like, it's good. All my clients have rescheduled. Is it financially, a bit of a crunch right now? Yeah, but at the end of the year, it'll work out. So I can't cry, I can't cry all that much. So, it's good.
It is what it is, right? I mean, it's, adapt or die has never been more relevant than it is right now. And it's a confusing place to be for sure, because it's like every day it's a different thing. Like, what do we do? Just even talking with my landlord this morning, she was like, you aren't prevented from going into the building. Like, we haven't shut it down. Your utilities are still working and like you're still allowed to do some work out of there. But then it's like, well, what does that mean for my employees? Like, who am I putting at risk? And like, it's just so confusing to navigate this landscape right now. And it is interesting to see how like some people are like, yeah, man, I'm killing it. Never been busier. And other people are like, fuck, it's a weird place to be for sure. Awesome. Well, I am going to bring in Kyle real quick so he can introduce himself. Kyle, say hello to everybody.
Hello, internet world.
Yay.
Hey, I'm Kyle Bondo. I'm the co-founder with my best friend Tim Bryan of Gagglepod, and I'm the chief creative. We do everything between the microphone. So concept creation and podcast design is kind of our bread and butter. We're really heavy in that conceptual space where the artists live, the softer skills that, like I'm going to start a podcast. The first thing I do is buy a microphone. Nah, there's like 8 other steps. We live in the 8 other steps part. The
800.
Yeah, the 800 steps, exactly. And so we've got a couple different shows out there right now. Tim and I co-host Podwrecked, which is helping you survive your podcasts. We take all those layman questions we get from the meetup we do here in Fredericksburg. We have a meetup called the Virginia Podcasters Association, where every month we get some podcasters together and we talk about, hey, what's going on? And a lot of them have great questions about things that Tim and I go and figure out, well, how do you actually solve that problem? And then we create an episode out of it. So it's like, kind of creates its own content in a way. And then Tim does Create Art Podcast, which is interviewing artists and getting your muse on. And I do one myself called Not Easily Squished, which is going deep into the podcast design, the fundamentals and the principles. And that's us.
Nice, man. That's awesome. I didn't realize you had so many different shows and things going on. I'll have to check all that out for sure. I love the idea of figuring out where things have gone wrong, That's how I feel about my dating life. I'm like, where did I go off track?
You start to figure out the one thing you can change, and your whole life changes. Yeah, that's the same thing in podcasting too. There's people don't realize that they could just pivot one small way or figure out, hey, why don't you do this one thing rather than these 17 things, and people actually listen. And
like you don't have to stalk somebody to make them fall in love with you. I learned that the hard way. I'm just kidding. I've never stalked anybody. I don't have no time. What a mess, though. What a mess. Man, I'll tell you what. Trish, can you move over a tiny bit to your right?
To my right?
Yeah, there you go. That's
I'm trying to not fidget, but the one thing that I have learned from because when I've been recording for my own purposes, it's just me in front of the camera, so no big deal. But being exposed to different technologies or Zoom or this or that and the third, I am a fidgety person. I am so fidgety. I touch my face. I move my hair. I talk with my hands. Yeah, see, look where it is. I don't even know that this is happening, but it's happening.
Give me 5 minutes and I'll hit this microphone at least 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So feel free to tell me to move anytime because I'll just be all over the place.
It's daytime, no worries. Activity, so we're all like getting a little kind of weird anyway. So
yeah, I don't for sure. Well, and it's difficult, it's hard to not be fidgety. And I didn't realize how much of a hand talker I was until like doing this show and like seeing myself. Because usually in the studio, there's a little echo there. You hear that? Usually in the studio, somebody else is running it. And so there's a camera aimed at me, but I don't see the camera. Right. You know what I mean? And so I don't notice all these little nuances of all these like that. I just touch my face. Oh my God. Thank God I've been alone for 17 years. And
washed so many times. They're all wrinkly and dry.
It's a hot mess, man. It is a hot mess. And what are you gonna do? Look, I touched my face again. Now I'm like even more aware. Damn you, Trish. Damn you.
See, now you're aware every time now. Now I'm just like, oh, stop. Okay.
And now my face itches more. Don't touch it.
Right.
So well, that kind of brings me to a good point. One of the things that I wanted to talk about today is the like best practices for setting up at home and how to get that done. And one thing that I was talking with Adam Levin, shout out to Podcast Outfitters and Chuck Levins. We were chatting this morning and, we were doing a little like recording and I was like, yo, what happened to that wood wall behind you? I like that better. And then I was like, you might as well just set up your studio, right? And I think this is relevant for everybody that's working at home right now, which is kind of everybody. Hopefully, set up a real, space for yourself. Almost everybody needs a low-key studio at this point because everybody's on Zoom. So, set up the room the right way, like put the windows behind or in front of you so the sun is aiming at you. Like Kyle, exactly. And just like, set yourself up for success that way. I work from home for a long time. And a lot of times people will put their desk against a wall and then you're like facing a wall all day and the open room is behind you and the windows are behind you. And I know that's a normal setup, but pretend you're the CEO of a company, right? Like if you walk into your boss's office, he's not sitting against the wall. His desk is in the middle of the room. Her desk is in the middle of the room and she's facing out, right? With her back to the wall. And that's exactly how I know. I was like, hold up. We all know women run this shit. So But that's how you want to set yourself up too, right? Have your back to the wall. And if you are going to be doing a lot of Zoom calls, like set it up, man. Get some lamps from your house, like get yourself comfortable and get yourself set up. And then that way you give yourself a little bit of break between like your house or your bedroom or your dining room table and where you're actually working every day. And I see a lot of people posting pictures like, oh, my new office, and it's their like couch and their like coffee table. And like, let me just tell y'all, I know you think it's cute, but your sciatica nerve is going to be hating you sooner than later. That is not a long-term plan. Take it. Everybody's nodding because we all have worked from home for a long time. And we know that the couch is a trap for so many reasons. So is the pan of brownies that I made last night, but that's a whole separate conversation. But yeah, man, get yourself set up for success. Make sure you're comfortable, have everything there, and give yourself a little separation. So I'm curious, do you guys have any tips or tricks to give people to kind of navigate through this time right now? Like, I know are you working from home primarily, Trish, or are you also going into Mindspace still, or what's your jam?
You know what? I was never okay. So I've been working essentially remotely for years and years now, right? Because as a planner, I'm either in my office or I'm doing things at 10 o'clock at night at home, or I'm visiting a client. So for me, having a mobile setup has always been imperative.
Yeah.
But about 2 years ago, all right, so confession time, about 2 years ago, in an effort to sort of like get myself more set up professionally, got myself into a different co-working space, which is how you and I met, Molly. And so I gave up that home office setup. So now at home, I can take smaller Zoom calls, but when I need to do something that has a bigger bandwidth or that needs like a more professional looking something, my desk, the way my apartment is set up, faces my open wardrobe. So if I take a call and I don't use a background, or if I'm not like on the floor facing something else, you're going to see all my clothes behind me. So not very professional.
I mean, live from the closet.
Live from Trisha's closet. It's me doing who the hell knows what. So and that, or I come into this space, but I sound echoey. I know I sound echoey here. Right. So I'm trying to figure that out. I'm like, okay, there's got to be a happy medium where maybe I just upgrade my equipment, and that might be but it has to be mobile, right? Like I can't have equipment that is just set up in one location. I've got to be able to put it in a backpack and go.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because actually there's this piece of equipment right here. The Rode, it's a USB microphone. It's a great little piece of machinery. It plugs right into your computer with a USB.
Okay.
Super simple. It's also really heavy, so it doubles as workout equipment. Like if it really came down to it, you get rid of those bingo flaps.
Yep.
That's what they call them in England. I learned this week. At first I was like, why would they call them bingo flaps? Because I got some, I know, isn't that terrible? I have some bingo flaps.
All right, we've got the bat wings, bingo flaps, whatever you want to call them.
We joke about that on our show. Is every time we bring up a sponsor or drop a name, we say $100 to that person. We stole that from the Ray Edwards show. That we're giving them the promo. They owe us now $100. So we figured out all our clients is we're going to send them all invoices. Whoever pays us the invoice, that's our client. And we say Dave Jackson from the School of Podcast name.
Dave Jackson.
And at DC Podfest, he walked up to us and goes, "I think I owe you guys like $900." So Rode, $100 Rode.
That's right.
$100 for that.
Yeah.
And by those metrics, Jameson owes me like $1 million.
You get like your own bottle.
What is the pricing on that? And is that the only thing you need?
Jameson?
Yeah, well, no, Jameson. Separate conversation. Yeah. That's live from the home bar.
That's right. Yes, this is pretty much all you need. You can plug this right into your laptop. You just bring it close to you so you talk into it, and then you run a pair of headphones out of the back of it so you can hear what's actually going in and out of it.
Okay.
And your earbuds can work or a pair of headbuds, whatever they call them. Just something without a microphone, or the microphone is going to override the Rode microphone.
Gotcha.
So we're gonna
Okay.
nerd out
Yes.
on podcast gear. This is an ATR 2100, which kind of has the same setup.
Here, I'm gonna put you on full screen so people can see your glorious
Holy,
microphone.
the 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 microphone. It's so like the little hand model here, and
Yes.
they stopped making these. This is like the F-150
Wow.
of Mac truck or of microphones. It's just drop it on the floor, kick it around. It survives everything, and it's so good that Audio Technica doesn't make it anymore. They now make ATR 2100, was it X or something, which is, it's got a little more shine to it. It's a upgrade of their firmware and things like that. So we gotta make sense. And I think they're using USB-C now rather than the other. You get some
That's cool.
more interchangeability, but this is old school here. But same concept. This one has a USB plug on it. You just plug it right into your laptop. You don't
Which is awesome.
you don't need the Mackie mixer I've got sitting over here. That's
Right.
all this space. You can really kind of just go straight in. I think this is the future of where podcasting is going. Is people get in this space where the technology is a super challenge. These devices are going to start becoming more and more relevant and better. That's the other thing. They're going to be better because right now some of them, they're okay, right? Everyone's like, oh, Blue Yeti. It's like, we'll try to make a Blue Yeti sound good. That becomes a challenge.
Okay, don't get me started on Blue Yeti because I will talk so much shit about Blue Yeti.
In the picture, when it's supposed to talk to the top, I love that one the best. I think David Hooper from Big Podcast has been making fun of the Blue Yeti on Instagram for a month straight now. It's like,
oh my god,
strange Instagram spoof and satire on the Blue Yeti. It's perfect.
Oh, sign me up. I am down to talk some shit about the Yeti. And you know what it is? So Adam and I just recorded this thing earlier this morning, but we were talking about exactly the Blue Yeti. And it's like, everybody thinks that the Blue Yeti is like the guy. I think that like somebody got famous on YouTube and had that microphone. So like everyone thinks that's the microphone you should buy. And it's the worst microphone because it's a condenser microphone, which means it picks up everything. The way that the microphone picks up is all around it, right? And so if you are, Mariah Carey, or you're recording an album that's going to be played at Radio City Music Hall, then sure, you want a microphone like that. But if you're a podcaster podcasting from home, it's going to pick up your neighbor's lawnmower. It's going to pick up, your esophagus, It's going to pick up everything that you don't want it to. And it's just mind-boggling to me how much of the market share Yeti has soaked up. And yet I've been to enough podcast conventions now, and the one company that's never there is Yeti.
And
that pisses me off. Even if they're not the right microphone for the job, at least fucking show up, man. Like, come on. Like, you are soaking up so much money. Show up, man.
Want Blue to have the biggest booth there. They should, especially with the amount of people that use snowballs on top of that, because that was my first podcasting microphone, was the snowball.
Right. Everybody thinks that's the one, and I don't know why, because I feel like there's enough people talking smack about Yeti at this point, you know what I mean? But I don't know, people still love that Yeti. So yes, so speaking of microphones, we'll talk about mine for a quick second. This is the Shure, I always forget the number of this. The SM7B. This is the Cadillac of microphones. This is what Joe Rogan uses, and like all the major players. This is the microphone that they use. Yeah. Gary V. Me and Gary V got the same microphone. That's it. I might curse as much as him, but that's about it. But it's a great microphone, but super expensive. But there are other options that are like $100 that are just as good, that sound really good and can get the job done. But these are all XLR microphones. So for the USB, I think this is like AKG has a new USB mic, and this Rode USB mic. They're both great options. We can put the links in the description to send people there as well, so that they can check it out.
So
those are all available from Chuck Lemons, right?
Yes, some are still shipping, some are not.
Here's the beauty right here. Here's the little gem that every podcaster should own one of.
Yes,
this is an H4n Pro Zoom. This is from Zoom. It's a little handheld guy. Comes with 2 XLR things at the bottom. You can put in, like right now I have one.
Check it out.
I have a 1/4-inch plugs in here, XLR in here too.
Are you doing a podcast, or are you taking a radioactive reading off of it?
No, this is just recording.
Both.
Just in case this drops off. I got all the live whatever going on.
Hilarious.
And it's just built into my process. The reason why it's so good is with an XLR microphone, you can plug it right into that. You can even put the little spit screen, little plosive stopper up here on your microphone, and that's it. You can have nothing else, no computer, no mixer, no nothing. You can record an entire podcast with just that little box and your microphone. You can make it that minute and that small. And I know that people have tried to use the cell phone. I think iPhone has some software. There's a couple companies that make some good iPhone software, some microphones that go on top. Molly showed me one that goes on top that it's becoming so easy that it's no longer, the technology is no longer becoming the problem.
Right.
The problem with podcasting is that, well, first, that everyone can do it, but should everyone do it becomes the problem.
No.
They think the broadcast, everyone sitting in the basement and talking about whatever is going to be, they want the $100,000, 100,000 listeners, they're going to monetize. And that never comes true, because without a why, without a purpose, and, a really specific target audience, no one's going to listen to that unless if they find it by accident, they might listen to it, or maybe your friends and family listen to it. But shows like everyone compares themselves. Well, Joe Rogan doesn't talk about the same thing every time. I'll just be like Joe Rogan. What they don't realize is Joe Rogan has 20 years of stand-up comedy, TV experience, and a whole lot of production experience behind him. Not only that, but announcing experience too for MMA, all that stuff. What did Steve Jobs say? Is the overnight success took 10 years? That's Joe Rogan. They think they're going to turn on the microphone and they're going to be awesome. And the technology no longer will stop them from making that mistake, which is fine, because that's why companies like us exist, is when they go down that road and they hit episode 13, they don't know what to do next. That's when they have to come back and reassess. Okay, what am I actually doing? Why am I podcasting? What's the purpose of what I'm doing? And that's a huge challenge for a lot of podcasters, which explains the almost million podcasts on Apple Podcasts, but only, what did Rob Walsh say at Podfest this year? About 250,000 are actually active.
Right.
Have released an episode in the past 90 days. That means 750,000 episodes.
Right.
Are garbage.
Right. I was curious about what that actual number is, because I know there's like 900,000 podcasts, but like how many are active? And so that's good to know. It's like talking about Anchor too. Like Anchor is where podcasts go to die. It's like the Florida of podcasting. I heard a stat recently that like 90% of podcasts on Anchor don't make it past one episode. So now there's not even pod fade, Kyle. There's something called pod flash.
Podwrecked. Those are the 3 stages of the podcast. Yes. Yeah. One and done is the pod flash. I think Daniel J. Lewis coined that term. And then the pod fade, of course, is the one where you just kind of like, you kind of like to lose interest. And then the Podwrecked is the show that you still have a live RSS feed, but that show's been up on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts since 2009. It's still there. And they just have the people just keep showing up and go, oh, here's a show. And then listen to it like, oh, that sucks. And they leave, but it never goes away. So,
and then they're preventing other people from naming their podcast the same thing, because they're holding this place marker that they're not even using. Yeah, it's an interesting concept for sure, because, a lot of people think that the podcast space is super noisy, and it is in some sense, but not really, because once you get to quality and active, it's actually a much smaller playing field than you might think. Yeah. And so it's really about how you spin your message and how you craft it, and your marketing and your show description and your show titles. Like, for the love of God, people, stop naming your podcast or your episodes like Molly's Podcast Season 1, Episode 2. Like, no one gives a shit, man. They're already on your podcast. They know it's Molly's Podcast. You don't need to say that again in the title. You are wasting SEO. No one cares about what season or what episode you're in. And maybe this is just me, so I'm curious to ask you guys. When I see a podcast that's like episode 317, and I've never heard of it, I kind of think to myself, oh, poor guys. I don't know if like saying how many episodes you have helps or not. I don't think it does. That doesn't. I don't know. What do you guys think? Does it give a show more legitimacy if they have hundreds of episodes, or does that make you kind of wonder why you've never heard of it before?
For me, it only helps me if it's something that's episodic by nature, like a true crime or something that follows something by progression. So then that way I can kind of figure out, based on where I've caught it in the cycle, how far back I need to go to catch, previous content.
Right.
But if you're, so I mean, I guess it just kind of depends. Are you producing something that's, episodic and falls off, or are you producing something that's evergreen? I think that if you're like me, I being very sort of, at the beginning stages of everything, I've made it an effort to not name anything by an episode or a season, because because I want that content to be evergreen. I want you to plug in 2 years and say like, and then if you're interested, you can go and find the date that it was published and figure it out from there. Yeah. So I don't know. I think people just do it because they feel they need to do it. That's what I'm seeing a lot of. Like people do, like they buy the Yeti because they think that they need to buy the Yeti. They go to Anchor because they feel that everyone, this is where all the sheep
That's
go.
what people are using.
And so we're following the flock on that. So that's just my sort of like layperson's perspective.
And I think
that's helpful for sure.
Trish, is how many YouTube videos out there are from 2012, 2014 that say, hey, put your episode numbers inside your show. Hey, go buy this phone that doesn't even exist anymore, or such and such. All this bad advice still lives on the internet because, as I think that Dave Jackson even said this, the internet writes in ink, right? Is you put this content out there and people are like, oh, podcasting. I want to do a podcast. And they search, what is a podcast? And of course the search traffic shows up and you get some good stuff sprinkled in with a whole lot of garbage.
Yeah.
People gravitate to the garbage because some of it's well produced. Some of it looks pretty slick. They look like they know what they're talking about. When your podcast is on fire, you can gravitate to that. And you start to piece those pieces apart. You go, well, this guy is talking about this. What about this other person? And they'll lead you to people in their own little sphere.
Right.
May not be the greatest people to talk to. Plus, you are buying books that have been around since 2015. They're still published. There's still Audible books out there for podcasting that are 3 to 5 years old that talk about things that aren't true anymore.
Don't even exist. Yeah.
Like FeedBurner and hey, SoundCloud's a great place to put your podcast. Like all that stuff's all bad advice. So
have you been seeing these SoundCloud ads all over your Facebook? They're like number one podcast. I'm like,
yeah, okay.
What?
Yeah.
But you just gave me an idea for my next podcast name. I think well-produced garbage. That's what it's going to be called. We're going to talk about nothing at all. That's going to be the topic of conversation.
Someone right now is probably going on to Namecheap and seeing if that .com is available.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy it and then hold it hostage from me.
Episode 1, Belly Lint.
Belly lint. The delicate sound of belly lint. Yeah.
a deep dive into water chestnuts. Like.
Well, at Podfest, I met a lady who was doing a podcast on cheese. So why not? I mean, you can do water chestnuts. If you can do cheese, you can do water.
You know what? Her cheese podcast is like very. It has a loyal following.
I'm curious, honestly. Okay. I want to know.
Hey, cheese tastings in audio. I mean, that's got to be what do you call that? ASMR?
Yeah. Oh no, God, that would be horrible. Or like mukbangs, or you could just watch. Just watch me eat cheese and brownies for hours on end because I'm already doing that. So like, I could just put a camera on myself, call it a mukbang, and keep it moving.
You could add more complexity to this because my kid the other day was on his phone watching the talking heads. And I looked like there was way more talking heads than normal. And I was like, what are you watching? It was like, oh, I'm watching my podcast. I was like, you're what? It was like, it's Critical Role. I'm watching my podcast. I was like, say that again, watching my podcast. And I'd never heard that term before because I always think as podcast is audio only. Only my 22-year-old is watching the podcast. So already just in the past year, we're starting to make it more complex anyway, where YouTube and podcasting and things of the content is starting to blend together. By the time people get around to this, we'll have gone to something else 2 years from now, and they'll be, we'll be making fun of them for buying the YouTube microphone or whatever that is. It's
right. Well, and that brings up a good point, right? Because, what is a podcast? What isn't a podcast, right? And does it change its definition depending on the platform? And you guys know I talk a lot about like YouTube versus like audio and video. But then the other thing is like streaming. Like if you put your podcast on Spotify, it's not a download, it's not a play, it's a stream. So now you have to calculate that too. So somebody could say, "Oh, I'm streaming my podcast," right? Or I'm watching my podcast. It's really interesting to see like where this is all gonna head to and what's gonna happen, especially since right now like listening is down, which is kind of interesting. Maybe we need to do some reminders and like release old episodes and say, hey, do you want to break from the doom and gloom that is life? Like here's an hour's worth of content that'll remind you of a happier time, and maybe just kind of reeling people back in because their habits have been disrupted. So people that listen to podcasts like on their way home or on their way to work or at the gym aren't doing those things anymore, and so now their listening habits have been disrupted. So it'll just be interesting to see like how many podcasts are still going, how many people have like kind of just buried their head in the sand the last couple weeks. What's gonna happen? What are we gonna do, man? Like who's gonna step up, right? That's part of the reason why I want to do this show, is just to provide a little bit of normalcy in the middle of the day, to just catch a break from the news and social media. And I just realized that like it's helpful for everybody. It's helpful for you guys. It's helpful for the people watching. Hopefully I make people laugh a couple times. People, I got a few comments about my bring back the lady stash comment because it's inevitable. Okay. Have you ever tried to listen, Kyle, I know this isn't really your conversation here, but I have tried to wax my own mustache and I suspect it's a lot like bungee jumping. You're just like, oh, okay. Like, okay. Like it's so hard to self-inflict pain. Like, I don't know how people can like give themselves tattoos. Like that's not for me. And waxing your own mustache is similar. You're just like, you start sweating and shaking, man. It's just hard. It's really hard. And so I suspect that men are going to have a much more accurate sense of what being a woman actually is at the end of this quarantine.
Yep.
I agree. I think men have been very spoiled by
yes.
by the level of general societal upkeep.
Yes.
That women have, I mean, let's not forget, like I was looking through some old episodes, I think of like the Carol Burnett show or something, a while back. And, I'm, so full disclosure, I'm about to turn 46. I have looked at other 46-year-olds and I'm like, God damn. Like from like 20, 30 years ago. And I'm like, thank goodness for, Pond's cold cream and other fantastic innovations, because none of my friends who are of a similar age group look that way.
Right.
But we're about to see a change in that, I suspect. So I don't know. I think it's, I think a lot, but I think more to the point of that is I think people are going to get a full dose of what is important. What habits can we drop? What habits are important? What's important for our own mental health? I see a lot of people who just like can't function, or they're just going crazy because they can't keep up these personal habits. And I'm like, all right, this is going to be an interesting time.
Big reset. It's the big reset. This
is.
I don't know. I don't think it's a new normal. I think people are going to reset what is important. And I think that because now they're being faced with this reality and they have to kind of look themselves in the mirror of all the things they were doing beforehand. And now they are seeing them. So they're going, oh, did I really need that? This is the thing that I'm an IT guy. So I work in an IT shop that was very against teleworking. No, we take attendance here. You must be in your chair, but I'm not doing anything. Doesn't matter. We manage by attendance. If you're sitting there, I can actually tell you something to do.
Right.
You can do that on the phone or on telework too. No, I have to see you. All those people that had that opinion for the past 2 weeks, they seem to be functioning within telework, starting to get used to it and realizing that, oh my gosh, I can manage my entire staff this way. Unfortunately, now it has tipped the other way where all my meetings are things that should have been emails because now they want to see everybody on their little boxes, little Brady Bunch boxes. They want to know who the center square is so they can have a conversation that doesn't require everybody. So this is starting to evolve. And the cool thing is that who was it? The guy from 37 Signals and who did Base Camp. Is it Freed or no? It's the other guy. Wrote a book called Remote. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where it's a little tiny book talking about the nature of work will change. And everyone was like, yeah. And I think companies like Yahoo and maybe it was HP or IBM, they rescinded all their telework agreements. Like, no, we're never going to do telework ever again. And other companies have been like telework remote. Their entire company doesn't even exist in an actual place. And there's war going on. For the past 2 weeks, no one has said anything about remote being a bad thing. No one has said anything about teleworking being a bad thing. All the stigma has just washed away.
Yeah.
And at the end of this, when they go back to the normal and they say, oh, well, we don't do telework anymore, they're going to have a huge uprising on their hands to say that we did more work teleworking than we ever did in the office. How can you now say we can't telework anymore? And this is how it happen in private industry, but it's going to happen in the government too, because the government has been kind of very slow to move to telework. And they've had policies out there, but it's kind of, hit or miss. Your job can't be teleworked. Well, turns out that there's a heck of a lot of jobs that can function just like we're functioning right now. And that reality, I think, is going to be refreshing. The nature of work will change, and this is the giant test right now that it can happen. What is it? Did Zoom? I think Zoom became $1 billion company overnight when this got locked in their place. Their valuation tripled because now they're like the #1 video teleconferencing company in the world.
Yeah.
So
and good for them. Good for them. It's a great program. Although I did a public broadcast the other day and I got those like porn, like internet trolls like bombed the meeting, and so they were drawing like swastikas on the screen and and penises and like Microsoft Paint on my screen, and it was just like, and then one kid like played porn in the background, and I'm just like, I think that no matter what, like never overestimate the intelligence of men. Sorry, Kyle, but I'm just saying, like,
I humbly apologize for
on behalf of half of the human race.
Just
but
comes with the penis. Yeah.
It just seriously, it's so funny to me, and then one woman was like, I had to leave. I couldn't handle the images. I was like, simmer down, biscuit. They were gone in like 2 seconds. Like we banned them, but like, it's just so funny to think that like anybody on the planet would think that would be so upsetting, right? Like, no, a penis. Like, oh God, what are we gonna do? But Zoom definitely has their work cut out for them because there are like some security issues and things like that. I did see. Did you guys see on the internet last night? I literally giggled for like 5 minutes off of this, but I guess somebody's company was using like Microsoft groups or whatever it was, and their boss changed herself into a potato, but it was like her eyes and her lips, and she couldn't figure out how to undo it, so they had the whole meeting with her as like a talking potato. And all you saw was a screenshot, but it was so good. I was like, oh, I could just imagine this like older woman getting annoyed by it too, and be like, how do I turn off this fucking potato? And like just
I would stay away from that meeting.
Funnier that would be, like an angry potato with lips. Like this is good, man. And
it was probably like their teenage child who altered the settings or something. Like thought it would be funny. Yeah,
probably. I was like, "Where's the potato setting in Zoom? I want to be a potato. Like represent my Irish heritage. Like, what's up, man?
How dare you unplug the internet? I'll show you, Mom." Yeah,
exactly. You're a potato now, Mom. So good though. But sometimes, I mean, all we can do is laugh, right? Like I woke up this morning and, I try not to get on social media right away, but I do screenshot like the world, like whatever odometer or whatever it is that shows you like how many people have died. And I'm just sort of like kind of keeping track of things. And then I noticed that like Trump is finally nervous. So that made me a little nervous. I'm like, it's about time. Good Lord.
You got but it is stuff off. You just got to turn it all off. Yeah.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. But it's a scary time, man. I think more than ever we have to like lean into being able to laugh at ourselves and turn yourself into a potato if that's what's going to keep your staff giggling through this time. Because what a mess, man. I gotta say, like, kudos to I know this, might sound crazy, but kudos to the government for putting out these stimulus packages and making small business assistance loans and things like that. That's given me a little glimmer of hope. I've been applying for those for the last week and hoping that something shapes out, right? Because it's such a bummer to be going through my financial reports and then being like, holy shit, man, we like all these goals that I set for myself, we were just about to hit them like in March. And man, what a blower it is to just see that like climbing and for 15 months from the beginning of the business, and then just like a fucking tragedy of just a straight cliff of my numbers. Ooh,
oh, that's horrible.
It is horrible, man. But I'm committed to keeping my rent paid. I'm committed to keeping my staff employed, and that's just really tough, man. And I don't know how I'm going to do it without those SBA grants and things like that. So,
well, Trish may have some insight on this too about the events that are all these canceled events. I have a lot of friends. So my very first podcast was called Merchants of Dirt. We did a race event management business skills, for mountain biking and trail running. And all the companies that I've worked for or volunteered at or raced with, all of them, they can't hold races. They can't have any kind of group events. They can't have any kind of people more than 10, right? In the state of Virginia, we've pretty much shut down any kind of event possible for any kind of racers. Their companies are just faced basically an extinction level event. Now, you could probably think hurricane or snow or rain, they could probably survive that. But we could roll into April and May. We're talking like peak mountain bike racing season. We're talking USA cycling level, collegiate and national events, all supposed to be happening over the summer. All that's gone. It's just decimated the entire outdoor racing industry, or just outdoor industry in general. So I put out an episode of a podcast that I haven't done in 2 years. I put out a new episode talking about, okay, what do you do? What do you do when you don't have the ability to group? And you start to think about it. I was like, can you hold competitions virtually? How can you have, these kind of like, remember like the Race the World kind of thing where you could run in your neighborhood, and then that would count towards a race that happened in China or happened in someplace in London or something like that. These race directors are having to think outside outside of their comfort zone with technology, because they're all paper and clipboard people, and now they have to think about online memberships and, hey, here's a course map, you have a week to go run it, versus, hey, we have to meet on this day at this time and the starting gun goes off and you have an hour. Now it's, hey, everybody, whenever you get a chance, Bob races at 8, and then Susie races at 9, and then John races at 10. So they can't touch each other. But here's the race course. They're having to really rethink themselves.
Are they using like Strava routes and stuff like that? How are they doing that?
Have to. So they're going to have to use GPS and Strava and all those kind of apps. They have to leverage that stuff.
Well, you can also use race bracelets. That's how some of the races in the past have done it.
Yeah.
Like especially if you want to qualify for like New York or Boston marathons. They will ship you a bracelet, and then you turn it on at a certain point. Then they'll, it works in some sort of GPS capacity, and then and then you turn it off once you hit your completion point. And so I'm not exactly sure of the technology behind it, but I know that.
Well, it's RFID, it's GPS technology.
Yeah,
so RFID knowing where you started and stopped, and then the GPS tracking you. There's a whole bunch of the stuff has gotten really small. It used to be really big. Now it's really small, which is nice. All these event management companies have never thought this way ever. I mean, they go out there, they put tape on trees and they hang paper signs with arrows on it, and they show up with their clipboards with their stopwatches and say, go. Now all that's gone. So what do they do next? So that's just outdoor industry by itself, because with the race gone, people who sell products to race people, those people are they're going to suffer that same problem. And then the people who fix that stuff are going to suffer that same problem. So there's a huge for virtually thinking outside of memberships and race courses that are what's called asymmetric competition. Is you're going to have a competition that lasts a month, and they're all going to race. They all sign up for your program, but they all race individually, which kind of opens up some interesting ideas, because then you can race like historical landmarks that would never allow a race. But if it's just me running with my backpack through an historical site, that's perfectly fine, because they're all for that. I'm just tracking myself on a GPS, and then I just check in with the website, and now I'm in the competition. I get my T-shirt through the mail, or my medal through the mail.
That's right.
This is the creativity that has to happen with some of these companies is going to have to really make them uncomfortable with doing new things that they would never do in a million years.
Well,
And
I
so,
think that's just also very like a function of marketing, right? Like I think that
yeah,
we're such a competition culture that it races used to be about personal best, right? You were in the I did a half Ironman like years ago, and I am in nowhere near the shape or level that someone who's been doing it for years and years is and so that kind of intimidated me at first until people were like, it isn't about beating number one, it's about beating you. It's
yeah,
about you completing the course, whereas last year you weren't able to. It's about next year you sign up and you do better. It's about you, like, unless you're going to be one of these sort of like monetized competitors, it's about personal best. So,
Mhm.
so I think that for the outdoor sports community, that's gonna their marketing's gonna have to shift. Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
it's no longer about I mean, and then once you remove that, then why can't somebody run their own course? Because if they cheat, then that's on them. They're not, they're getting the same medal that if you finish a marathon in 4 hours, or if you finish it in 7, you're getting the same getting the same medal. So that's on you. If
Because the
you
Bitbacker people are the people that fund those businesses anyway. The gazelles, the people at the front, they're not the ones who bring in the money. It's the people who keep showing up who are fans of your
Right.
business that actually bring you in the money. I've had people that have $10,000 mountain bikes and get all mad because the entrance fee was $35. So you have those kind of people aren't the people. It's the people that just because you showed up and put on the race, they thank you 30 times.
right.
Those are
Right.
the people that actually fund your business. So, and
Well, and
trick. Okay.
it might be time to like sorry about that, Kyle. It might be time to rethink some of these things too. I mean, the last Marine Corps marathon and rock and roll, marathon that like or whichever one was in the city. I think it's the Marine Corps.
Marine Corps one.
Like horrendous, horrendous. That thing looped around the whole fucking city. You had to go to Virginia just to go 3 blocks, shut the city down for hours. That is a huge negative impact on all those businesses and everybody else who's trying to get through life, who quite frankly doesn't give a shit if you want to run a marathon or not. Like, you cannot impact my business. Like, I cannot be on the verge of not being able to pay my staff because you wanted to run through the city. Like, it's at some point it's not sustainable anymore, right? Like, if you're not giving some sort of a benefit, right? Like, I mean, we love the idea of the Boston Marathon and the New York Marathon and the camaraderie and all of that. But then what about like the brown guy who was trying to get to work that day and couldn't get to his construction site and might have lost his job because of that? Like, I don't think we factor those things in, and it's just not sustainable anymore, especially when you're talking about shutting down a city. Right. Like, I think in the mountain bike world you're like out on a track and you're not really bothering anybody. But these marathons really need to be rethunk anyway, because if the devastation, economically outweighs whatever the city got paid for all those police and all, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, when you want to shut down streets in DC, you got to go to DCRA. You got to pay the police a grip of money to do that.
Yep.
There's insurance policies. The amount of time and energy that's spent on getting that done, I'm not convinced that the juice is worth the squeeze. Maybe for the company doing it, but what about everybody else that's being impacted? And so it just really kind of makes you wonder. I think this is the catalyst that we needed to kind of pivot some of these things. It's just, we're a bigger nation. There's more of us. I mean, look at Burning Man, right? I don't know why that example just came to mind, but in the early days when it was like 500 people going out to the desert and saying leave no trace and all that, that was great. But now when you have 80,000 people and they're bringing everything, the strain you actually put on the planet is far greater than if you would just build something in the fucking desert. You know what I'm saying? Like, the amount of carbon footprint from everybody dragging every drop of water that they need to the desert that week. That's not smart. That's not earth friendly at all, right? Like,
Really,
you're missing the point,
you could do a virtual run through the city either, because you're not supposed to be out in the city, which kind of goes back to the whole reason why doing this in the outdoor world in the trails works a little better, because it's a little more remote and it's a lot less people. I've noticed that with my exercise, I go to parks anyway, and usually I go to parks that are the dirty, smelly people free, because no one ever goes there. There, a lot of the national battlefields here in Fredericksburg, Civil War,
Mm,
things like that. No one ever comes here. They're deserted year round. And now I went out there just on a Tuesday, and it was packed. Notice let me explain. Packed. It was like 50 people there. That's
that's a
Which
lot.
is a lot.
when there's just maybe two, and it's me and some other guy, and we're on the other sides of the park. So that's a new shift too, is people are starting to realize, okay, where can I go exercise and there is no smelly, dirty people.
Yeah.
And the parks, national monuments, national parks are going to start seeing way more people start to flock to them as they try to figure out, how can I go do something that I need to do exercise wise? I can't do it in the city. I can't go to the gym. Well, I mean, Prince William Forest Park is right down the street. That's got a couple 100,000 acres out there. I mean, I can go out to
Right.
the park all day long and never see anybody. So there are places just outside the DC area that have those kind of places. I'm sure any city of anyone listening will have something like that. That's where you need to go. And that's
Yeah.
where these virtual events can take place. Just this past week, uh, Super Joe Pardo had his Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference. Was really called, now it's called the Independent Podcast Con, or Indie PodCon, virtually. No one had to go anywhere. We had 40 plus speakers all speak in 2 days. Everyone did it he was doing over StreamYard, which it came through Facebook and I think through YouTube as well.
Right.
The entire conference, nobody actually had to leave their house. All the speakers came from their own speaking locations. People could watch from wherever they wanted to watch. No smelly, dirty people touching. None of that stuff was going on. And
Hey, I like smelly, dirty people.
that's the sports side of that. You like them at the starting line, you don't like them at the finish line, right?
That's right.
Yeah. But then
I-
I think this is the nature of events going forward, is these virtual events are already starting to explode out of necessity, as conference owners have lost they've lost their permit, they've lost their deposit,
Mhm.
lost all their sponsors. They're sitting with this ton of swag and stuff they bought that they have nothing they can do with. The virtual conference has just got itself a shot in the arm. It will become explosive. Our meetup, we've been meeting for 3 years between the community college and the library. Just this Monday, we met for the first time on Zoom. We've never done that before, but the library's closed. So what do?
Right.
Let's try the Zoom thing out and see what happens. And it turns out that people show up. So
Yeah.
this is the nature of events going forward, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah,
I do
it's certainly going to
too.
be a challenge. It's I've had a lot of those conversations in the last couple of weeks. I actually I had sent an email to Molly because I was just on a 1 o'clock call with another conference, for another conference happening. We're looking at it was scheduled for August, and yesterday I was on the phone with somebody else about a conference, and so we're all talking about how do we shift that, and I think that the key is going to be exactly in that interaction you had between the two of you, where Kyle, you were talking about the smelly, dirty people, and Molly's like, "Hey, but I kind of like that," because really, like, in terms of conferences, you have these are the two main elements of people: your extroverts and your introverts. And so your introverts are going to adapt to this very, very well, and are not going to mind going to a virtual format at all. But you're going to have your extroverts who are going to still want that element of gathering, that element of physicality, that element of belonging to something that is outside of their routine and outside of their day. So there were a lot of really great ideas of how to do that. But I think that people that I think that what's interesting to see now, kind of get back to your point about business owners closing and this being sort of like the death knell of a lot of businesses, is event planning has always had a very low barrier of entry, right? Like anybody can put a sign on their door and be like, "Oh, I'm an event planner now," and really you are, and you can be a very successful one with very little certification or knowledge base or anything, because event planning, it encompasses everything from mountain biking events to weddings to conferences to galas. It's all of it. So what this is going to do is force people to either increase their personal knowledge base or get out of the way.
Yep.
one way or another. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of smack talk in the industry about people who come in with a very low knowledge base, and they kind of like either learn as they go or they don't bother learning at all. We're gonna see a drop off of all of them. You're either going to start to take this seriously and educate yourself about how to pivot and how to offer your clients better services going forward, or you're going to go back to doing whatever it is you did beforehand and then just riding this out for however long it takes you to get out of whatever financial or business hole you're in. So, shift or die.
Yeah.
Well, so it makes me think about, so last year I went with a client. I went with Mason-Dixon Biscuit Company, and I went to Food Expo West, which is like the largest like food expo event of the year. And it was in Anaheim, and it was like the Natural Foods Expo West or something like that. And I went just to help and to capture some content and just to kind of be helpful to the team and all of that. And so, I was frankly appalled. I was 100% appalled. I was like, oh, now I understand why food costs so much money. And I'll explain. Okay. The Anaheim Convention Center is like 5 RFKs. Like, I don't even know how to put into words how giant this facility is, right? They have rooms that are 4 times the size of our entire convention center, and that's like one room of 20 that's active. They had, I have never seen anything like it. The amount of money, right, that gets spent for these vendors to go there. And I mean, they had their own trusses. They had, Vita Coco had a fucking beach. They built a beach. They had a like 50 by 50 plot, which was at least $150,000. Like, no bullshit, just for the footprint. Okay. Then they came in and they brought sand, and they built the sand, like a beach and a whole thing, and all this branding, and then a truss hanging over the top and lighting the whole thing up. And they were giving away, vitamin water the whole time. Right. And I'm looking around, I'm looking like that's a $250,000 installation, not including product. That's $150,000. Right. And then at the end of it, the amount of food, right, that just gets wasted is fucking appalling. Like, why does that event exist?
I'm surprised at Natural Foods, because because if you go to like an event like South Beach, like the South Beach Food and Wine, they actually have and they've done this for the better part of like 15 years at this point. They partner with FIU, Florida International, where for a sustainability aspect.
Yeah.
So they collect food that, anything that can be collected and is consumable, they'll take those to the food banks, to U.S. Food Harvest, I think it's called.
For sure.
They compost where they can compost. They have a tremendous recycling program. So in other food festivals of that nature have followed suit based on that success. So I'm surprised that
they probably do. No, they probably do, but it's still not enough. It's still not enough. If Vita Coco is spending $250,000 on an installation at one event, that is what's driving up our food costs, right? So when you buy a bottle of Vita Coco, right? Kind bars, bruh, why are Kind bars $1.89 in the store when for 5 years they've been giving those things away by the caseload? Every event I've ever been to in the last maybe 10 years has had somebody has several boxes of Kind bars just chilling in the corner, and everybody's trying to give them away. That's why they're $1.89 in the store. They have driven their costs up by giving away millions of free bars. I venture to say, let's stop doing that, right? Like, if you look at the festival industry as well, there's an organization called Clean Vibes, and all they deal with is the sustainability and the carbon footprint that music festivals have. Like, do you have any idea how like detrimental Bonnaroo is, for example, to the planet, right? Like, you've seen the pictures where all these kids live their tents and everything else, but just like, so Clean Vibes has been doing this thing for over, I think, 15 or 20 years now, where they offset the carbon footprint and they hire people and they recycle everything, and they literally pay people to go through the trash and pull it all out. I mean, they're really committed. But like, the things that we like have grown to love are really just like late stage capitalism in full display that are not sustainable and it's like, even if they're donating some of this food at the end of it, like some of it's perishable. Like how many, I don't know, you guys remember like 2 years ago there was some big events, and a friend of mine hit me up and was like, does anybody want hummus? I have like pallets of hummus. So she was like, yeah, meet me at this, like, it was like a undisclosed location for the drop off. And so I pulled up, and she rolls up in a flatbed truck, like no bullshit.
Oh my God.
A flatbed truck jumps out, like cranks up the back, door, and says, take as many as you want. I took like 17 like cases,
Wow.
but they were, at the end of the day, they were like the little pretzel cups with the hummus, the little combo pack. But like they have an expiration date on them, right? So the next day I brought like 3 cases into the office, and then like one of my employees, his girlfriend worked the same promotion, so he brought in 3 cases. So for like 3 weeks we all ate hummus, to the point that I was like, if I ever see another fucking chickpea again, I'm gonna fucking hurt somebody, right? I couldn't do it, but they started to go bad, and then I started to feel guilty, and I'm just like, how, like single serving plastics, like how much did we just waste for that? Like, where's the corporate responsibility, right? Like, shouldn't Sabra have known that there weren't 150,000 people that wanted hummus that weekend? You know what I mean?
You get all those companies that virtual signal. They like, look at us, we're sustainable and we do all these things. Look, we even have a page on our website that says we do it. And
but are you though?
Part of that though is on the part of the conference organizer, and I'll tell. And from a behind the scenes perspective, I'll tell you that companies like Vita Coco or Sabra, they're not showing up with 200,000 pieces of anything unless they've been given that number by the conference organizers. They like there's like an in-depth discussion that happens in advance, and where they're like, how many tickets, and that's also part of it. It's because the conference organizer or promoter or seller wants to justify the $50,000 that they just charged you for that footprint. So they're going to tell you, like, oh, we've got like 100,000 people registered. They will inflate those numbers up to the nth degree. And then when those people don't show, because they were never going to show, that's what leads to the food waste. That's what leads to everything else. Because, of course, like Sabra wants to show up like, oh, 100,000 people. Well, we need to show up with that much product.
Well, let's give them 200,000 so everybody gets 2, right? Like they're trying to be helpful. They're trying to get their product out there.
The thing about because everything's becoming virtualized is no longer those soft numbers where, well, did those people show up? Like, well, we gave away that many badges, or we gave away that many bags of stuff in it. Virtually now, I know who tuned in, how long they stayed on, and I know when they dropped off and which tracks or which speakers or which sponsors they dropped off at. I have so much data now that even as a not only as a vendor, a sponsor, or even as the actual host of the conference, that I can use that information to determine who's going to speak next time, which sponsors actually get any kind of traction on my numbers, who actually sells any product, all that stuff allows me to take advantage of that. Where before, event managers, like you said, the level of experience within event managers, you get that squishy number, like, well, yeah, we had 500 people here. It's like, no, you didn't. You had 100.
Did you though?
Over maybe 2 days, and there was like extra tickets, but you gave those away, and those people didn't really show up.
You just had the same guy hitting up the buffets 5 times in a row. Like, so that does not really
feel triggered. Leave me out of this.
It's all good.
No evidence.
But that's so in a way that it's accountability across the board. It kind of reminds me of where back when the older generations of marketers and marketing departments and corporate clients who were just moving into the online digital marketing space didn't really know enough about how that worked to justify or quantify their budgets, properly. So they would just throw these numbers, like they would throw the marketing department like $1 million because some kid told them they needed $1 million. So now that they have that experience, now that they have the metrics, they have the numbers to justify, the spend. They're making better decisions, but better financial decisions. But there was a time where people were getting thrown all sorts of money in the web space and then the web world. And then the events in the events world, I think we're kind of at that precipice as well, where people were just throwing numbers, throwing pasta at the wall, see what sticks. And now I think that, Kyle, to your point, now that business owners are getting real metrics and real numbers behind what their spend is, we're going to have a lot more responsible spending, especially now that people are can take this opportunity to really examine their costs and say, do we need to pay that rent? Do we need to pay that marketing? What is the ROI on what we've been doing?
Right. Were those hand sanitizer branded packets really worth it? Did we really need to make those logo designed totes? Right? Like, did we need to make those pens that everybody throws away the second they walk out the door? Like, is that really? And all that stuff is coming from China. So now you really gotta think, right? Like, I've been on this Marie Kondo mode of not gathering crap, and so anytime I go to an event, they're like, "Take this tote," and I'm like, "No, I don't need any of that," right? And then this pandemic hit, and I was like, "Damn it! I've thrown away so many of those little stupid hand sanitizer things from events. If only I could get them back now." But
Podcast Junkies taught me the trick of after a conference, lay everything out on the bed in the hotel and take some really good pictures of it and then throw it all away into the recycle bin. Because you don't need to take all that stuff on the plane with you. You don't need all those as long as you have their contact information digitally.
Oh yeah. I clear out my bags before I pack it, because I'm like, I can't.
And that's what is okay. So you don't have a tote. What's the virtual version of a tote? It's probably going to give away a course. It's going to be a digital product. It's going to be something digital.
Learn something.
And imagine the footprint of that. That's going to, of course, product wise, is going to change the footprint. But
everything.
I don't know if you've noticed is the thing. Well, first, thank God for the internet. If we didn't have the internet, we'd really be in worse shape right now. But think about the drain right now happening on data centers and fiber optic lines, all the stuff, because everybody is online. I mean, at my office space, we had to turn on a whole nother dark fiber just to get all the telework people to be able to telework. We didn't have bandwidth. We didn't know we never ever had that happen before. The whole staff.
You're like, we've never had this many people working at one time before. We can't.
What's going on? Like, turn on a whole nother set of dark.
Your productivity, right?
Yeah. So there's a give and take. Yeah, we don't make the bag in China anymore, but we turned on 4 different servers at the down in Dansville. And what does that cost in electricity, in actual air conditioning and things like that? So there's give and take. I don't know what it correlates. It might be for every 10,000 bags, it's one server, and maybe that's a good exchange. It might be, because where do the bags, the server gets turned off and used for something else. They gets replaced constantly. What happens to the bag? I got a stack of them over here in the corner that's with it. They're stacked in the corner. They need to go.
The proverbial stack in the corner, man, it's always there. Yeah, and it kind of brings me to the point too, so my last event, which is where I got to hang out with Kyle, was at Podfest Expo or 2020. Pew, pew, pew. Shout out to Chris Kremitz.
Right under the line of the quarantine.
Oh man, and thank God, because I really needed some of that social interaction, and that was the last bit of it that I had. In fact, Kyle might have been one of the last few people I saw in the flesh. Ironically,
this was something more recent than November.
Yeah, because it was in
the 8th, so
March, like first, second, third, something like that.
Yeah, March 8th. That was when last time we said goodbye. So.
Yeah, and it was a wonderful event. I finally learned how to say Chris Kremitzo's last name because I heard it so many times. Shout out to him.
Good luck, Chris.
And I'm so glad for it, but at the same time, that was like a $1,500 trip. My hotel room was $1,000 and my airfare was $300. And then, there was more than that, because then I did like a Instacart delivery to my hotel room, because I was like, well, I'm not paying $18 for every glass of wine. So I got wine and some snacks delivered to my room, because I had a little fridge so I could feed my. Yeah, exactly. Well, I got a rotisserie chicken and some fruit and stuff like that, so I can make little sandwiches and stuff, because it was so expensive, to eat at the hotel. And not just I'm used to expensive food because I live in DC, but at least it's good food, right? At the hotel, it's super expensive, and you're like, that fucking sucked. You know what I mean? I'm such a sucker. I just paid $40 for a sandwich and a glass of wine, and it was all shitty. And so, but my point is, it was very expensive, right? And the ticket was not expensive to the actual Podfest. The value was 100% there, but it's all the collateral expenses with getting down there and having a hotel room and paying for Ubers and buying food and all of that. And it's man, it just makes that stuff really out of reach, right? Like one of the big topics that keeps coming up on this show is accessibility, right? Like we've really changed the game for accessibility, whether it's physical limitations or financial. And so it'll be really interesting to see. Like, I wonder if next year, if Podfest or whatever the next big one is, or podcast movement, right? Like,
August. That's
right?
it.
Like what, will they have more attendees, right? Because if you don't have to spend that extra $1,500 on your airfare and your hotel and your food and your transportation, then you can actually afford the $300 or $400 ticket. And does it matter that it's not in person? Because at the end of the day, like, you want all the information that's being delivered in these panel discussions and presentations. And I don't necessarily have to be there. In fact, if I'm there, I'm physically unable to attend all of the sessions because I can only be in one room at a time. So I'm curious to see that. Like, I think some of these events will actually do better when you've eliminated all of these other auxiliary costs out of them, because then it makes it more affordable for the average person to attend this event. Now, a podcast festival or a conference or convention is a little different than like a wedding or a funeral or some of these other things that like need to happen in person, ideally. So that'll be a real shift. But I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of this is good. I really do. I mean, as much as I valued going to Orlando and hanging out with my friend Jody Kenny, who I met at She Podcast, and I really needed that downtime and that one-on-one feminine energy, and just like not being in DC for, I mean, it was worth every penny, don't get me wrong, but I'm curious to see like what this means moving forward, because I kind of would have rather have spent $1,500 and gone to like Greece with my friend Jody Kenny and hung out for a week, not necessarily $1,500 to go to Orlando. No offense, Orlando, but you're kind of fucking lame. So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't really care about Disney or any of that shit. So
actually, so it's interesting you brought that up, because I was on the phone yesterday with Jen Crawford, and we were talking about the plan C, like what happens.
right.
We've already shifted to a plan B scenario. What happens in plan C? So in talking that through with her, and then with a follow-up call I had with the other conference today, I think having these sort of like alternate location scenarios, like why can't we move to a scenario where maybe we work out package deals so that you could attend the conference in 3 or 4 key cities that will be simulcast, from a hotel, ballroom, or conference room. So you're still getting that content value, but you're now doing this at a location that's preferable to you, either because it's closer to where you are, or like, why can't you attend in Greece? You can.
Right.
They have the technology. So why, and it would be, and it would be great, because like you, my only vacations are conferences. Like if I don't travel for educational purposes, I don't travel anymore.
Yeah.
And that's just a function of being a business owner. And
which kind of sucks a little bit. Like, I want to go on vacation and not,
Yeah. And I don't want to go to Orlando.
Me neither.
Because like, no offense, Orlando, but I've seen enough of the mouse. But
I'm good on that. Full up on Florida.
Full up. And so maybe it's doing this sort of like, like it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what this breeds. I mean, it reminds me of like post 9/11. After 9/11, I was in New York. I was working out of up there, and what I saw happen almost immediately within the first couple of weeks is kind of the same thing that I'm seeing happening now. Is like, all of those offices that were Midtown then had to find alternate locations to either Southern Connecticut or Northern New Jersey, and that didn't change, because once they got, if you were closer to Jersey, or if you're closer to Connecticut, once they got you there, people didn't want to leave afterwards. And those states aren't stupid. They made it financially, appealing to continue to house those workforces, in those locations. So that forever changed the tri-state landscape in terms of work.
Totally.
And I'm starting to see the same sort of thinking and mentality here, where it's kind of like, okay, well, people are still going to need offices. What do we do with that office space? Because people are committed to leases. So these companies aren't going to be giving these leases up anytime soon.
Well,
You
they
know,
can't.
right. But they have a workforce that isn't going to want to return to the office. So
Right.
now what do we do? What do we do? So it breeds this level of creativity that I think, I'm with you. Like it sucks that we're going through what we've gone through. I have already lost people that I know to COVID.
Sorry.
It's horrible. But I can't ignore that adversity breeds creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but feel like, optimistic that, once we get through this, it's going to be an incredibly great time
Mm-hmm.
for those who are able to shift and able to alter perspective. And, if you can pivot, then you're going to have a really good time. But, it does, but part of that is not, I think the financial part of it is actually a very small part of it. Like you have to be able to pivot creatively,
Totally.
to pivot in your business model, to pivot in your own habits. And I think that people who can drop that and shift are going to have a much easier time in this period of transition.
Especially
For
people who are
sure.
in the new media design world and who understand digital products, understand digital marketing, and understand how the social platforms work when it comes to making ads and creating content. We live in this space because we have to. I mean, everyone said, oh, the big joke was, the day before the virus hit, the podcaster was in his office, and the day after, the podcaster was in his office. Like nothing happened to us, right? We're in the same. Oh, something happened outside.
Still in the basement. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're used to this environment. As these companies start to come to the realization that, oh no, we need to pivot quick, because now we can't be at those conferences and we can't provide these events, or we can't have people show up. We need these kind of online people. Suddenly we just became the rock stars. Realistically,
Right.
all these companies have already seen it happen on LinkedIn with the job openings. The digital marketer, any kind of cloud people, any kind of people understanding into the digital content creation space. These companies, some of them who already figured out early, are starting to advertise like mad. It was weird is I get a newsletter from the outdoor industry job market. It was the shortest newsletter I ever seen ever. It was really tiny. I also go to weworkremotely.com, which is something that they set up for remote only jobs. It is the longest scroll I've ever seen.
Wow.
Remote jobs, and it's all like DevOps and system engineers and customer service people and copywriters. They live in this little world. It's crazy to see how the job market is starting to react, because like I was telling you, the guys in the green room, my son yesterday came home. It's like, I got laid off. They don't need me at the car dealership anymore. I don't have a job anymore. I was like, well, what are we gonna do for money? And he's like, well, thankfully Dad's employed. Yeah, but he's like, oh, well, I can do Uber Eats. People still want food, and I've got gloves, and they're still at risk. But now he's got to go with the 3 million other people online to look for jobs, and they're starting to realize, oh, I don't have those skills. I don't understand social marketing. I don't understand digital media. I don't understand how this marketing works. Suddenly we became very, very, what you could say is our skills and our talents have become very marketable.
Right.
For sure.
As this goes forward, we're going to be able to, if with our own businesses, I would hate to say benefit from this, but that's an unfortunate side effect of just being in the right place at the right time kind of thing. But we kind of see the forest, through the trees, and a lot of other people are going to start leaning to us for that knowledge.
For sure.
I think things like this, these kind of digital conversations, in fact, will become more and more gold online.
Yeah.
Start to gravitate towards the understanding that, hey, I need to go talk to Molly. I need to go talk to Trish. Those people know some things that I need to know, and I have to learn that stuff yesterday. I can't do 6 months of research. I need to know it now.
Yeah.
Go and hire somebody like this. And with my respect, my feedback would be, well, my rate per hour was one price. Now it just tripled.
Yeah.
Because it's not ideal. I want to pick and choose, right? So suddenly it's like, oh, you charge that much, I'll give you double. Well, I'll give you triple, and you start seeing that kind of bidding war. That will happen. I totally predict that will happen. Is digital marketers and digital people who do creation in digital space will be able to name their own price. They'll be able to work for companies they never were able to work for before. They'll be like, oh, I applied to Apple. Apple doesn't want you anymore. Now Apple might want you. There's a thing. So.
Oh shit, that's it. I'm gonna bag it on Heartcast and head on over to Apple and be like, "What's up? I wear turtlenecks. I wear black every day. What's up?
Right.
Let me get up in there." Well, kids, this has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate your time. This has been a lot of fun. We should definitely circle back again in a couple weeks and see what's happened and what of our predictions have come true. And I love this idea that you had about like remote locations and simulcasting things and all of that. I think that there's a lot of legs there. So we should do a call with me, you and Jen.
You might get a lead from me soon.
Yeah, there you go.
So I tossed your name out there today.
Nice. Well, I definitely appreciate any business for sure. We're just trying to keep on trucking, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And so I will go ahead and, kind of close the broadcast for the day. So thank you both for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. And then for everybody who is listening or watching, God bless you. Thank you so much for tuning in to Live from the Living Room. This show is keeping me whole and it's keeping me sane. And so I hope it's providing a little bit of something for you as well. Please keep us in mind if you have any podcasting needs or if you want to create some content, hit me up. I'd love to talk to you about it. Other than that, I appreciate everybody's time. I hope that you all stay safe and stay warm. Love the ones that you're with, even if it's hard. And just be your best self and spread some love out there. We all need it. Thank you again. And I will see you guys tomorrow, 2:00 live from the living room. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you.